Hi, I'm Catherine Morgan from Point A to Point B Transitions. I'm also the editor-in-chief of Carol Roth's blog, Business Unplugged. Today, I'm excited to share with you Donna Kastner. And Donna is the founder of Retirepreneur.com. And we're going to talk about what's retirement, what's self-employment, and the options people are thinking through. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Catherine. Thanks for inviting me to join you here.
Well, I'm excited to have this conversation. Carol was kind enough to introduce us a while ago, and we had a lovely conversation. I've been meaning to follow up with you for a while to see what's happening with Retirepreneur.com. Can you tell us a little bit about your group, organization?
Sure. I like to say, so we are championing a movement, and there's a lot of folks out there looking at reinventing work and retirement, and we're one of them and trying to help further those conversations. But essentially, we are very focused on people in their 50s and 60s, helping them to kind of think through what's next. Because a lot of them are not looking to stop on a dime, but they don't want to stay full throttle in their current job. They're looking for some kind of gradual downshift. And that is something that we're focusing more time and attention on. And I think the biggest thing we're doing is we're helping people to find one another, because actually when they start to find others in their community that are pursuing this, they help one another and amazing things happen. So there you have it.
I don't doubt that in the slightest. Carol always says, a rising tide raises all boats. And that's, a lot of what we do here at Business Unplugged. So do you think that it's, we have some overlapping demographic. My folks tend to be, say, 45 to 60, so there's some overlap. And I find that my folks are saying, the kids are gone, I'm ready to hit the gas. Now, what I find people are asking for is autonomy, being able to choose the types of projects and clients they work with, and also flexibility as opposed to working fewer hours. So they're willing to work some pretty good hours, most of them, but they want to have a little bit of control of their time because of some personal passion projects or personal health issues or elder care issues. What are you seeing around that?
I want to call out one thing you mentioned there. So MetLife does an annual trend study. I'm sure you take a peek at that as well. And this last one that just came out a few weeks ago, flexibility, the ability to work when I want, how I want, is continuing to just rise. And it's not just one generation, it's across all generations. They used to talk about work-life balance. Now it's work-life integration. And so we're trying to find those opportunities. And sometimes it's a job, and sometimes it's a gig, and sometimes it might be both. Right. But I think you're right in calling that out. I think we're okay with work spilling into our personal life, but there needs to be that similar give and take to handle personal matters, possibly during the business day.
Yeah, I like the term work-life allocation. Balance is fleeting.
It certainly is.
Or I haven't found it. I don't know. So what do your people come to you with? What are they saying? What have they experienced when they're looking for the type of help Retirepreneur can offer?
Yeah, and I want to be very clear, because I think that I have been muddy in the future. It's been 10 years that this idea first hit me back when the economy dipped. Boomers were prime targets for layoffs. People were pointing folks to me. And I would often say, okay, you can get a job, but you can also do some freelance work. Have you thought about that? And by the way, I find freelance work, I'm sure you've seen this too, Catherine, I get more job offers as a freelancer than I ever did when I was pursuing jobs. It's just
no joke. It is a sound strategy. If you are a consultant of any kind, marketing, strategy, business process, IT, I have had, especially at the higher levels, like marketing director level positions, I have had a lot of clients go in to a job interview and see that the people maybe didn't need that, or there was a portion of it that they could carve out as a project, and then just sort of the next conversation change it. Yeah, I really liked working with you. I'd love to help your organization, but by the way, I actually see this as a 6-month project with these types of deliverables. Is that something you'd be open to? Or the other way around?
And on both sides, so the employer, by doing a project with a person, it's kind of a sample. I'm getting a chance to sample what you're about. Right. And there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. It doesn't go on forever. And if it's structured correctly, again, they're like, wow, we'd like more of that. And so for job seekers, I just think having kind of a freelance oar in the water is not a bad thing to be doing.
Absolutely. Have it in the back of your mind. Yes, your primary goal is to get a full-time opportunity. But what I tell my folks is try before you buy is actually a good thing on both sides.
Absolutely.
You don't know what you're walking into till you get there. Everything may be all sunshine and roses, and you get in there and it's a hot mess. So you do your project, you have your deliverable, you thank them very much, you leave professionally, and you don't have to tap dance around that. You were hired for a 6-month project, you delivered a 6-month project.
Agreed. I think that culture fit's so important. What's interesting for us, though, is we're not necessarily coaching and guiding retirepreneurs. So what we're doing is we're hosting events in various locations and bringing folks together to start to explore this together. My background in the conference and trade show space is focused on experience design, session design. So I'm big on interactive, no more talking heads. It's, a short topic gets teed up and then we dig into it and discuss it. And boy, those are taking off. And so once you start having people in a community meet one another, and then you start continuing to feed them good content, they start running on their own. So that's where we're at with Retirepreneur. Monetization, quite candidly, is happening through speaking, and sponsorship is just starting to kick in. And we've looked at this hard, and we're staying in that direction for the time being. But boy, nothing fascinates me more than to get a group of people together. And the big mistake I made early on is I went too old. I was looking at the people that were retired or getting ready to retire within 6 months. And I've actually pulled back to a tighter niche that's a little bit harder to connect with. And it's those that are currently working and they're looking ahead and all they see is stop and continue. And, we want to give them another path, and that downshift. So
that's incredibly valuable information. And I could see them connecting with it better than some of the content that's coming out of, say, the very young tech startup community, because they're going to look at that and say, that's not me. I could also see, and let me know if you've seen this happening, that people connect at your conferences and then break up into small mastermind groups of 3 to 5 people to support each other with education and accountability.
Bingo. That's exactly what's happening. And we're actually leaning into that with workbooks saying, hey, you guys want to continue to meet up? Here's a few topics and some questions for your future engagements. But I want to go a step further. Intergenerational collaboration. Okay. So I have a bias. I'm focused on the 50 and elder segment. But boy, oh boy, we have this thing where we're constantly, our human default is to prefer like-minded people, but when you bring a diverse group of people around a table to really examine and solve a challenge, amazing things happen. So I guess in the context of, the 50 and older, I'm also out speaking about intergenerational collaboration, and that means boomers can't show up and start, telling the millennials to get their noses out of devices, and vice versa. We need to be open and try to see how we can help one another.
I could not agree with you more. That is one of the things I very actively coach my 50, 60-year-olds going into corporate. I'm like, dudes, we are in a 5-generation workforce. There's a really good chance that your boss is going to be 20 years younger than you are, and you have to be okay with it. Because if you go in entitled or with a chip on your shoulder or even some squishiness about it, they're going to feel it, and you're not going to get the opportunity. You got to be okay with it.
There's a great book, Chip Conley, Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder. He just gets right into that and how the conversation needs to change on both sides.
I agree. I very much have had a different experience about getting older workers into corporate jobs at the right title level, at the right salary level, which he paints a very dim picture of, I think because his experience is San Francisco tech.
Sure.
So
No.
that is a little different. If you're, I think talking about Facebook, Google, Amazon, Salesforce, like, those players is very different than middle market or consulting or brain renting types of professions. I think there has to be two separate conversations. So I loved a lot of what Chip Conley said. I saw some great interviews with him. I think he painted a much more dire picture of the situation that I am finding with my clients.
Interesting. The other thing is for your clients and within the job situation, one thing I'm kind of surprised at, and can I ask the interviewer a question?
Totally. Let's go.
Phased retirement. I thought it would have taken hold sooner, and essentially that's where organizations begin to create programs so that the people that are in their 60s might phase down. They do it in universities where a professor might have a full class load, then 80% and 60%. And I'm kind of surprised to not see that happening in the corporate world.
Yeah, I have not seen that either.
Steelcase and Herman Miller were called out as examples, and I've looked at some articles about them, and it's kind of on my side burner, but I'm like, yeah, corporate America, let's not just stop at 65.
Okay, what I have seen though is some of the big consulting firms bringing people back in their 50s and 60s more obviously, because they're recognizing the brain drain. These people have real experience, real industry knowledge, they have judgment. They're self-directed. They can go, build the plane while they're flying it. They're saying that that's demographic. It just naturally has to shift, Donna. We have an aging workforce. People are healthier longer. A lot of people really want to work. And by the way, not working is equated, especially in men, with early death. Like early retirement equals early death for a lot of men and women probably too. But I mean, this is just not healthy. It's a recipe for clinical depression. It's a bunch of things that, we could talk about at length. But it's people, if you're, for example, I'm 57. Like, I'm not looking to slow down anytime soon. I'm looking to hit the gas. I'm looking to really dive into my thought leadership, to make a legacy. And that's the people who I seem to be talking to. Who are you talking to?
Right in there. I'm 61, so I'm a few years ahead of you there, but it's like too young to be done. But again, there's an opportunity to maybe balance and have a little more flexibility, because many in this age demographic were working long hours and a lot of responsibilities. So now it's kind of like, I want to move into this next Encore stage where I continue to work,
right,
but I have a little more vacation time or flexibility to go explore.
Yeah, and what we haven't mentioned, which I'm sure you see as well, is elder care issues.
Well, okay, so I go to Boomer Expos, and more often than not, I walk in, so Boomer Expo, 50 and older, come. You walk into this little trade show floor, and I see hearing aid devices and bathroom retrofitting, and I'm like, 50? Really? Do you think that? And I think what has happened is I think there's a whole new phase of vibrant elders that we know we have to deal with that. Right. We're not in denial, but we're not ready for that conversation yet. But I don't see this middle conversation happening as swiftly as I'd like.
Okay, I would like to work with you on addressing that, because I think the 45 to 60 range is a really interesting time of opportunity and possibility. So that's a separate conversation. When I was talking about elder care issues, I meant parents. I have a lot of people who are helping parents with health issues, end of life, getting, the estate settled. There's a lot of disruption in that age range, depending on, how much older your parents are. But, my parents are in their mid 70s and, most people's are in their 80s. Like, you're going to have some stuff coming up if your parents are still alive.
Yes, and I've navigated that personally, and did it, with that whole sandwich generation thing where I had kids in college and a father that had Parkinson's, and so then you're really stretched beyond capacity, and it's not easy. But again, what is it, Kelly Clarkson? That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Yes, doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. But I don't think enough people are talking about this. It's not unusual to have exactly the situation that you struggled with. You have that t-shirt.
And that's why the peer-to-peer community dynamic that we're fostering, it addresses that as well. So when we're bringing these groups together that might be pursuing entrepreneurial things, don't think there isn't oh, my mom's going into assisted living. Oh, I'm dealing with this. Oh, you should talk to this elder care attorney. They're making those connections and referrals.
I can't even imagine how valuable that must be. When I had to put my grandmother in assisted living, I never got that manual. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and at times, the New York, I'm in Ohio now, but I'm a native New Yorker, and there's a part of me where it feels like sometimes those instructions are decidedly vague, and it's not helpful for families trying to navigate this. So together we help one another. I mean, that's the great thing about digital, is to be able to find the insights and the people, but I also think face-to-face is so important as well, so we're trying to get a good blend of those.
Well, I absolutely love that you're getting the information out there to this demographic, because I think there's a lot of pie in the sky about what entrepreneurship is and isn't, and what personality types would do well as an entrepreneur, and what personality types should maybe figure out a different option.
Right.
So that's important, and I can absolutely see the value of community as you're thinking through things and launching things, and sort of a guided mastermind type of environment would be hugely valuable.
That's the model we're pursuing as fast as we can. But as I mentioned before, I've got 2 different things moving, and I'm trying to go from my consultant boat over to Retirepreneur. But boy, what a fascinating ride I'm having.
Well, I think you're in the perfect position to talk people through thinking through their options, given that you're working through it yourself. There's no more powerful stance. You're like, I get it. You feel like you're a little stretched thin. You don't know how much time to devote to your business, but your goal is actually maybe to exit the business and do this other project. I'm sure that the people who followed Retirepreneur are struggling with that as well.
They are, but they're gaining ground. They're making traction. So that's good stuff. That is really a good thing. So I guess that's the bottom line for what we're doing here, is that, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not a CEO. I'm a hard scrapping, resilient person, and I'm making this happen. And if that's encouragement for others, then it's all good.
So tell us about the information you're putting out there. I know that you launched your podcast, and what else should people know about?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we've got the podcast, which quite frankly, a couple of years ago when we started, that proved to be the fastest way to form community. I was amazed at how quickly our, things were spreading. Actually, and that's starting to subside, and video is taking over that. So this Zoom is perfect. I do a local cable show here in the Cleveland area.
Oh, fun.
And the good thing is that I host the program, and then I get the video and we can repurpose it. So we have on our website, we're looking at how people want to get information, and they can read, they can listen, they can watch, or they can join. And then this event piece is the part that we're expanding on in 2019. Last year we did some workshops at universities, because I felt like, why not come back to the place where you started your career to figure out this next chapter? And that was an interesting dynamic. So we're continuing to find our way and to experiment and learn fast and continue to refine. So I think there's quite a bit of content, never enough. We're running as fast as we can, but it's there to consume in a way that you want to consume it.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, Donna. I'll link to your website and the other content in the post, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Catherine.